your attention, please? The podcast is about to begin. Please silence your notifications, close other applications, and direct your full attention to the stage. Presenting Productman.
Hi, I'm Yunus. Welcome to episode 5 of the Productman podcast. In the last episode, we were in the kitchen, remember? We talked about the difference between PM and PO, who designs the menu and who cooks the meal. But now, we are stepping out of that restaurant door, because there is a crowd waiting outside, maybe even pounding on the door. The marketing team is shouting, "Yunus, where is the food? The customers are starving." The sales team comes running. "I sold the customer a flying meatball. You need to cook it immediately." The finance team calls out from the corner, "The cost of this plate has gone up. Let's shrink the portion." And of course, that phone call coming from the very top, from management. So today, we are going to talk about the hardest, most stressful, but also the most diplomatic part of being a product manager, stakeholder management. Today, I am not going to put a product manager hat on you, but a traffic police uniform. Because your job is to stand at that four-way intersection and manage the vehicles, that is the requests, coming at full speed from all directions without letting them crash into each other. In this episode, we won't just talk about my traffic accidents, we will also talk about how Steve Jobs stood at that intersection and how Jeff Bezos stood up to the chief of police, meaning his own managers. Get your whistle ready. The traffic is very heavy. Let's start. Transition sound, you are at the intersection now. Whistle in your mouth. Imagine a huge loaded truck coming towards you from the opposite side. The name of this truck is the sales team. The sales team is very valuable for companies because there is money in the back of that truck. But sometimes that truck's brakes fail. Let me tell you a story from my freelance days where I experienced this in the most painful way. One day, friends from the sales team came over. They were beaming with joy. "Yunus, we made a great deal. We hooked the customer," they said. They put the list in front of me. I started reading. Item 1, okay. Item 2, okay. Item 3, wait a minute. There are features on the list for which we don't even have the infrastructure, let alone the feature itself. They literally sold the customer a flying carpet, but we are still weaving a simple rug. I turned around in shock and said, "Friends, what have you done? We don't have these features. It is impossible for us to do this in this time frame." The answer was, "Oh, Yunus, we sold it. You figure it out. The customer is very excited. We can't cancel." At that moment, as the traffic police, I blew the whistle, but I couldn't make my voice heard. That truck came right at me and passed through. The result, those features didn't make it. The launch was cancelled. We were on the verge of being sued by the customer. The only thing I had left was a huge "I told you so" sentence, but I was under the wreckage too. So, what would the world's best traffic police officer do in this situation? Let's go to Apple, to the era of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was the toughest traffic cop the product world has ever seen. He has a famous quote, "Focus is not about saying yes. Focus is about saying no to the 100 other good ideas that are there." At Apple, engineers would come to Jobs with great ideas. "Let's add this, let's do that." Everyone thinks those ideas are very good. But Jobs says no to all of them. Why? Because Jobs knew this. If you let every good car pass through the intersection, the perfect car gets stuck in traffic. Going back to our sales team example, if I had been a cop as brave as Steve Jobs that day, I would have shot the tires of that truck and not let it pass through that intersection, because it is easy to stop bad ideas. The hard part is stopping good but untimely ideas. Okay, but what if the person breaking the rules is much more powerful than you? You are at the intersection, you say, "No crossing," but just then the radio on your waist crackles. The caller is the chief of police, meaning the boss, the board of directors, or the CEO, and he says, "Officer, do you see that red car? Let it pass immediately." We call this the HiPPO effect in the literature, that is, the highest paid person's opinion. Data says no, but the HiPPO says yes, and sometimes your hands are tied. Let me tell you a memory about this that still stings my conscience. There was a topic I warned the operations team about repeatedly. Do not do this transaction manually, you will create data inconsistency. But they didn't listen, they did it, and they turned the system into soup. Then they came to me. Yunus, enter the database, fix it by hand. For a PM, intervening in the database manually is a betrayal of principles. I said no. I refuse to use shortcuts. My stance was very clear, until my phone rang a few minutes later. The caller was upper management. Yunus, operations has stopped. You are fixing that data immediately. Now. I felt like that policeman standing at the intersection with a whistle in his hand. I knew I was right, but the order came from a high place. I entered that database. I made that dirty correction they wanted. Did we solve the crisis? We did. But when I left the office that day, I felt like I had compromised my principles. So what can we do in the face of such HiPPO pressure? Here, Jeff Bezos and Amazon come to our rescue. In the early years of Amazon, when Jeff Bezos went into meetings, he would have an extra chair placed at the table, and that chair always remained empty. When a manager, a HiPPO, said in the meeting, "I think we should do this, I want it this way," Bezos would point to that empty chair and say, "It doesn't matter what you want. What matters is what the person sitting in that empty chair wants. That is, the customer." This is a magnificent tactic. If on that day when management called me, instead of saying, "Sir, I don't want to," if I could have said, "Sir, if we do this, the customer in that empty chair will receive an incorrect order with a 20% probability. Are we willing to do this to the customer?" Maybe they would have hung up that phone. The only way to fight a HiPPO is to take the customer behind you. Let's come to our third player, the marketing team. They are the sports car of traffic. They are fast, loud, they love to show off. They have only one concern: step on the gas. We are going to do our first launch at a startup I worked for. The marketing team stepped on the gas, campaigns are ready, influencers are ready. But I am coming from the kitchen and I know that the food is not cooked yet, the system is not ready, we are getting errors in tests. As the traffic police, I opened my arms. "Stop," I said, "we are not ready." But the speed of that sports car was so high that they didn't even hear me. "We promised, we must launch," they said, and they pressed that button. The result, the first 10 minutes were great, orders rained down. But in the 11th minute, the system crashed. We took the orders but couldn't deliver. You are a newborn brand and you are telling your first customers, "Sorry, we couldn't do it." It took us months to recover from that loss of reputation. Here, there is great advice from a famous Google PM, Ken Norton. Ken Norton says, "As a PM, you have no authority, but you have a lot of responsibility. You cannot give orders to people. So, how do you convince people?" Ken Norton's answer is this: bring the donuts. He is not joking. Really. Ken Norton, when he was going to have a meeting with tough engineers or stubborn marketers, he would go to the meeting with a box of donuts in his hand. What does this mean? It sends the message: I am not just an annoying cop who asks for work and blows a whistle. I am human too. I am on the same team as you. I understand your stress. Maybe that day, instead of just shouting no to the marketing team, I should have gone to them, maybe with a donut, and established empathy by saying, "Friends, I understand your stress. You made a promise. But let's postpone this launch for 2 weeks. Let's give you a more solid product so you don't look bad." Being a traffic cop is not just about issuing tickets. Sometimes it is about giving way to that driver. So, Yunus, let's wrap up. Should we be tough like Steve Jobs? Should we put an empty chair like Jeff Bezos? Or should we distribute donuts like Ken Norton? The answer is all of them, depending on the situation. I will say goodbye to you with 3 tactics I use to manage this traffic. Tactic 1. Speak with data. When a HiPPO tells you, "Let that car pass," don't tell him, "I don't think it should pass." Show him the radar result. "Sir, if this car passes, the risk of an accident is 80%. The data shows this. Should we let it pass anyway?" Tactic 2. The trade-off method. When the sales team says, "We need this feature urgently," don't say, "We can't do it." Say this: "Okay, we can do this, but the road capacity is fixed. If we let this truck on the road, we will have to throw those two small cars behind it, the other features, off the cliff. Which ones should we throw? You choose. Tactic 3. Empathy. Don't just blow the whistle. Remember the Google tactic. Sometimes go to that driver. Is the salesperson's bonus at risk? Did the marketer get scolded by their manager? If you understand their pressure, you make them feel you are on their side, even when saying no. In summary, my friend, being a product manager means standing at that four-way intersection under the rain and mud and opening the way for those stressful, hurried drivers with a smile. Sometimes accidents will happen. There will be days when you hit the wall like I described. Sometimes the chief of police will call and you will have to swallow it. But at the end of the day, if that traffic is flowing, if people can reach their homes, the product, then you have done your job well. Let this be your next step. Tomorrow, when a stakeholder comes to you with a very urgent job, don't say okay immediately. Remember Steve Jobs. Say focus means saying no. Remember Jeff Bezos. Ask what would the customer say, and if necessary, raise that no sign. I am Yunus. Thank you for standing with me at this chaotic intersection in the 5th episode of Productman. In the next episode, we will go to calmer waters, to the discovery process. We will talk about the answer to the question, what does the customer want, using that skateboard analogy. Take care. I wish you accident-free days. Goodbye.